has a work schedule. You can set it up as a standard work schedule, or you can set it up as a custom work schedule. A standard work schedule would be something along the lines of, if you're in the U.S., you work 8 hours a day, Monday through Friday, or whatever that schedule happens to be. If you're in the UK, it might be 7.5 hours, or whatever it is. You can have different work schedules for different shifts if you have that business model, but you can set up as many quote-unquote standard work schedules as you like. You can also set up custom work schedules so that you can show that individuals are part-time or they have a very unique schedule. Now, one of the questions we get asked a lot is, when you're reporting on schedules in OpenAir, what's the difference between a base work schedule and just a regular work schedule? Because you'll see those terms in the reports all the time. And so here's the difference. The base work schedule is the schedule just the way it was set up. 40 hours a week, 8 hours a day, that's it. The work schedule option takes into account any one-off exceptions to that person's schedule. So if they've requested a vacation day, the work schedule takes that into account and shows them as 0 hours available that day, whereas the base work schedule does not. It shows that this is their base work schedule, 40 hours a week. So when you're calculating things such as utilization, it's good to know the difference between those. In terms of being able to schedule time off and other things that would impact a user's work schedule, OpenAir does have the schedule request feature, which most of you are probably familiar with. It comes in the timesheets module, so you don't need an extra module license. Anybody that has the basic timesheet functionality has this functionality as well. And they have the ability to enter their own schedule requests, or even take it so far as it doesn't actually get approved, and they're entering their own time off. As far as viewing the schedule, so this is where people like to focus. Where can we see what people are doing? There's all sorts of different ways to do it. You can do it through reports, which I didn't even mention on here. But you can build summary reports that show how many hours somebody's working on such and such a project a week. And there's all sorts of flexibility in the reports you can build. Now, when you're done, what you have is a sheet with a bunch of numbers on it, which is not usually what people want to do to look at someone's schedule. So I'd like to show you the 4 methods that are available in OpenAir that are a bit more visual for the most part, of seeing somebody's schedule, and kind of talk briefly about pros and cons of these. So I will start with the calendar. Bear with me. Looks like my instance has been closed, but so this is the calendar view in OpenAir. And this, frankly, is not real useful for most companies that have people working on numerous things during the week. So, for example, I have time on all sorts of different projects all throughout my week, and I get a view that looks like this. I'm supposed to be, 0.35 hours on Unada Downcone or whatever that is. I'm supposed to be, 0.15 hours on Inchville Hex. Again, this isn't really useful. If you have longer-term projects, this could be a very nice view, where you have, I'm 4 hours a week on this project and 4 hours a week on that project, and I can see that, and it's good. But for folks that have numerous projects, this gets pretty messy. You can see work schedules on here, so if you take a day off, you can see here, it's color-coded, and you can see things you're assigned to as well as what you're booked to. This is not a popular view, however, because it does get messy fast. Next one I want to show you is the worksheet view of bookings. And what this is essentially an Excel spreadsheet in web form. Now, this is pretty nice for maintaining somebody's bookings. If you want to book somebody on such and such project. Now mine looks really goofy because I've been assigned to things by 5% of my time here and 10% of my time there, and so it calculates these hours based on some unusual percentages. But if you're just putting in hours in here, this could be pretty handy in terms of maintaining somebody's bookings. I need them on Gentle Lane for 2 hours a week for the next however many weeks. You just put in a bunch of 2s and you're on your way. And you have these little spaces for notes. It's good information. Viewing somebody's schedule like this is awful. I mean, it's impossible to see how many hours I'm doing what without scrolling through the entire list. So this is not a great view for viewing, but it works pretty well for maintaining. And you can filter this down to just one person or just one client or project or however you want to do that. You do have these options in the settings link here to whittle this down. Next option is relatively new, and this is called the Bookings Planner. It's been around for a couple of years now. I'm gonna have to mute folks here just a minute.
Oh, it's just a drawing.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. You're still they started building?
Within the next day.
Oh, really?
Let's see if I can.
Sweet.
I can do this. My apologies. Just a minute.
The conference has been muted.
Okay. And so this is the Resource Planner view. And what this will show you is a user and then all of the projects that they have available to them that they're working on. And it gives a little bar that shows what days they're working on it. This is from the 26th through the 30th. It's a little bit hard to read in terms of identifying the days, but it's not too bad. This shows the first week of December, second week of December, and you can see that these are blue here. For the user record, you get all sorts of fun color codes, so you can see their overage when they're overbooked, when they have some holiday time, when they have some availability is in purple. This is a pretty nice view. It's not too bad. It's a little busy, a little bit challenging, but not too bad. The last view is my personal favorite, and I may be alone in this. I haven't run into too many folks who feel the same way about this as I do, and this is the bookings chart. And here's what I like about this. This gives you the ability to see, and you can configure it by weeks or days or whatever. I have it set up to show each bar is a week. And I have it shown the percent of time that they're booked. Purple being available. This is our sandbox instance, so we don't have a lot of updated information in here. But it also shows me, you can see how much someone is booked. So this consultant generic, I can just kind of glance at that bar and see they're about half booked. If I hover over it, then I can see the exact hours, 24.09 or whatever. But I don't need to. I can just kind of glance at it and see. I can also see who's overbooked by these little arrows at the top of their profiles. If this is more than 100%, it extends off the bar and puts a little arrow, so I can see, oh, this person's booked 48 hours of their 40 hours that week. And so it tells me where I can focus if I want to focus on people who are overbooked and how I can relieve that. I'm going to take this back a few months and show you a little bit different data. So this, you can also see here we have holidays in the green. Holiday here, holiday there, Labor Day. This would be Thanksgiving. So it's really, to me, this is a nice view of how busy people are. Now, I'm not seeing what they're doing in this view. I'm not seeing what clients, what projects they're working on. But I am seeing, how busy they really are. Based on their capacity. And if I need to see, what they're working on, all I have to do is click the bar, and this will give me all of the bookings that they have that week, what they're working on. So Ron had a few hours here, a few hours there, 4 hours on Project Fusion for these days. So that to me is a pretty good view. All right, so that's kind of the scheduling views in OpenAir. The only other thing I'll say about those, you do also have the leave accrual feature in OpenAir that allows you to set up how many hours somebody has in vacation or leave, and it'll actually automatically draw that down based on your configuration. So you can tell it to draw that down every time somebody puts something in their timesheet that's against such and such task or task type or client project. And you can automatically draw that down. It's a nice feature if you're tracking all of your time in OpenAir, so you don't have to track leave accruals in a separate HR tool or somewhere. All right, skills. And we're going to switch gears a little bit here in talking about skill profiles. This is, in terms of PSA tools, this is kind of an area that gets a little bit polarizing. Some people love it, some people hate it. And we're of the opinion that if you use it right, it can be really valuable, but that it's often used, we'll say, incorrectly or inefficiently. So what skill profiles are there for is to identify skill sets of employers and contractors, assist in performance management, career path planning, and supporting your sharing models of your resources, ensuring that you have the right resources and you have them on the right projects, and helps you in capacity planning to see where you are short in what types of skills. It also allows you to track other things that are not skill related, like certifications and travel document expirations and preferences and things of that nature. So it can be a powerful tool. It can be pretty useful if you use it right. Now, in terms of using it right, that's kind of what we're going to talk about here. Here's some things that are pretty good uses of this functionality. Product experience is great. If you are a company who has a half dozen products and you need to ensure that you get the people that are specialized in a certain product on a certain project, you would want to track their product skill or product experience here. Same thing with industry experience, if that's a need for you. If you need to identify people who understand healthcare versus people who understand telemarketing or internet sales or whatever it happens to be. Job role experience can be a little bit tricky. This would be where you identify project managers versus system architects versus documentation specialists or what have you. A lot of that is included in a job description. This is what they do. I'm a project manager. I'm a documentation specialist. And so this becomes kind of duplicative, unnecessary. But you may find that you have a good need for this. Soft skill experience, that's another tough one. This can be the most valuable piece of this, but it can be very subjective. In fact, it will be very subjective. That's the nature of soft skills. And you have to ensure that it remains confidential, and you have to ensure that it remains up to date and accurate in accordance with management's views on how these should be established. If you have the need to track languages, this is a great place to do it. And these categories can all be broken down further in terms of what kinds of product experience and this kind of thing. Here is where I would start warning about using the skill profiles. And this is what we kind of talked about. The biggest problem with these, where this has failed, I'm going to say 99% of the time for people that have used it and have had it fail, but it might be 100%, frankly. The granularity level has to match your business need. And what I mean by that, most of the folks where this fails have gotten far too granular with their skill profiles. They've gotten down to measuring things that are nice to know, but really aren't going to change a whole lot. One version of Linux versus another version of Linux, for example, or one version of this tool versus another. And so we strongly encourage that you avoid tracking. If you're tracking product skills, don't track them by versions unless you have a major change from one version to another you're going to regret going down to the version level because it simply is too granular to keep up. Tracking more items than are necessary for the business is kind of what we're talking about. If you're tracking, language skills and you're tracking English and Spanish and French and German and Japanese, but you don't sell product in Asia, you're tracking at least one language too many, probably. If you don't use them or use them rarely, don't track them. It's nice to think that more information is better. In these cases, that's exactly the opposite. The more information you have, the more information you have to maintain, the more information people have to muck through to find what they're looking for, and they will get frustrated and give up, and your initiative here will fail. Tracking profile items that are expected or everyday professional tasks, such as presentation skills. Everybody can present, but not everyone is great with it. Maybe this goes more into one of your soft skill categories. If you really need to distinguish between people who can present and people who can't, then you need to have it in there. But if it's just a matter of, well, these people are really super good at it and these people are kind of average at it, you're going to want to think twice before you go down the road of tracking those kinds of levels. As far as good items to track, we talked about these a little bit already: product, industry experience, languages. Location can be an interesting piece here. You can set up a profile attribute that is somebody's region, for example. There frequently are better places to handle this. So I'm not necessarily recommending this, but you may find that you want to do that. Technological skills are a great one to have here. This person is proficient in C++ or Java or what have you. So that's a good item to have. Attribute sets in OpenAir. Basically, every skill comes with an attribute set, which can be a numeric scale. This is how good they are on a 0 to 5 scale. This is it can be more of a beginner, intermediate, expert kind of thing, although that gets to be a little subjective. Both of those do. You could put it in terms of years. This person has 0 to 1 year of experience, 2 to 3 years, what have you. So it's a little bit less subjective. But that's what the attribute sets are all about. And once you set one up, you can use it on numerous skills. So if you want to measure years of experience, you can set up 1 year's of experience attribute and use it on all of these different skills that somebody might have. And this goes into more detail on that. I am kind of flying through a few of these because of our time. We've talked about attribute sets. I'm not going to go. Now, what we have here, and I'm not going to go through this in step by step. Anybody who would like this deck that has the step-by-step instructions, we can send it to you. We simply don't have the time. It's not the best use of our time to go through this and read to you what's on the screen and go through it step by step. Our primary goal here is to give you some of the best practices around use it, why you'd use it, things to avoid when you're using it. But the mechanics of setting it up, we've documented here, and if you're interested, just let us know. We can send this to you. I'm going to kind of skip through these. As far as keeping these profiles up to date, this is another area where this kind of falls apart. You set this all up in January of 2015, and it looks great, and you see that Marvin's got this skill, and Julie's got that skill, and everything's set up great, and then one of them goes and gets a certification. Okay, I better go update that. And then another one comes back and has, gotten their MBA. Oh, I should probably put that in. And now this person is cross-trained on this other product. So I better make sure I get that in. And you can be constantly refreshing this thing and updating it all the time. And within a couple of weeks, unless you have somebody doing this, or a couple months, unless you have somebody doing this as part of their job description, this gets old fast. And so what we recommend is that you make it so that these people can keep their profiles up to date themselves. So you don't necessarily centralize it, because that allows the wealth to be spread a bit, at least in terms of hard skills. Soft skills is a different issue. You certainly can't rely on someone rating themselves on how good they are at negotiating contracts or something like that. They can tell you how comfortable they are with it, but not necessarily how good they are with it. But on a lot of these skills, you can push that back out to the users, and they can keep them updated themselves. You can also, well, it says here, OpenAir does not provide or support a reminder or alert regarding updating profile information. Well, when we wrote this deck a year ago, that was hard and fast true, and there's not a thing you can do about it, really, nothing reasonable. Since then, they've introduced the ability to send emails through their scripting process, and that means that you can build a script that can measure just about anything in OpenAir, and you can email just about anybody with reminders, updates, information from OpenAir, data, all sorts of things. So the ability to notify and remind in OpenAir has improved 10,000% in the last 2 releases with this ability to script email updates. So if you're interested in that, if you know the scripting situation in OpenAir, you can tackle that, build a little script that does that. If you'd like us to help with that, we certainly can do that. We've got scripts that send emails on all sorts of different criteria already. Pretty easy and pretty quick to get those altered to meet whatever your needs are. There's another little trick in here on how you can get a reminder. If you set up a profile configuration that is reminder, update your profile, user state, then it'll send an email out to people. This still requires, this is kind of a kludge. This is still in here because this was before we had the ability to script emails. This was the only solution there really was to this problem. Still works, but it's a bit of a kludge. But we can send, again, if you're interested in this, we'll send you the deck and you can take a look. In terms of when to do it, we recommend at least at an annual performance review. If your categories are such that there's not dozens and dozens of them to update, it's probably worth it to remind your folks to keep their profile up to date on a quarterly basis, give you the most recent information, and give them the most opportunity. Okay, in terms of where you use this data, well, we've talked about scheduling a bit already, and you have the ability to search within the resources module based on these different skills. So you can run what they call a quick search that says, show me everybody who has this skill. And it's basically for one category. I want to see everybody who knows JavaScript. Oof, and there it is. Or you can do a custom search that you can say, show me everybody who knows this and has worked in this industry and understands this language, and etc. And it'll pull up everybody that has those criteria, and it'll show them with their availability as well. So you can see who's available when. Now, you can filter on availability if you choose to. We recommend that you not do that. And the reason why is that if you need a specific skill set, you want to see everybody who's got that skill set. And if they're on another project, well, maybe you can talk to that project manager, and maybe that project really doesn't need somebody of that high a skill, and you can swap out with someone else or whatever. So you want to see them whether they're available or not. It gives you an opportunity, it gives you the full picture. So that's the searches. Now, in 2014, OpenAir released this feature called a resource demand request. And what this is all about is it lets you request resources based on what skills are required versus what skills are preferred. And you can put more variables in here. We don't want this person because maybe they've had a bad experience with this client. Client really doesn't want them, so you can exclude them from this search. And all these various factors that you can put on this request. Where this works best is when you have somebody in a resource management capacity, or somebodies, if you will. I've worked at a few companies where project managers would get together and review resource requests as a team and figure out what they wanted to do with those. And if you have that, then these can be sent to that resource management function, and they have the ability to wade through people's requests versus requireds, different skill sets, and it gives them a really good ability to determine who's needed, and then they can compare that against their availability and make matches and send them out. Now here's where we talked about the resource planner already. Just a little more information on that. If you do run reports on this data, be aware that if you have a category that has multiple values in it that people can have, it'll give you all of their values. So if it's like a language and they can select 6 different languages, it'll have one line for each language. It's not a language line with all 6 listed on it. So that can be sometimes a bit much. Talk a little bit about entity tags. As far as using a resource profile as a resume, if your clients request resumes of your consultants, this isn't really the best thing to use for that. It comes across as just a bunch of numbers in a spreadsheet, and it doesn't really give them what they're looking for in terms of a resume or a write-up of these people's skills. So we don't really recommend using that. So, to summarize, and I'm only a minute past due, profile categories need to support your business needs. Just be careful. Keep it simple. Key critical information. If you're not sure how simple is too simple, start out with one category and use it for a month and see what people think. If they all come back and say, this is nice, but we need this other category, and 80% of your people are telling you, I need this other category, well, you know it's time to add another category. But if you have a question as to whether or not you should have it and you're just not sure, don't put it. You'll regret having it. The maintenance will become a problem, and the entire initiative will fall apart. Whenever possible, use objective terms instead of subjective terms if you have that ability. I have seen circumstances where subjective terms have really been very beneficial, so I'm not going to push you away from that. But if you are going to go that route, then you need to make sure that you have confidentiality security measures in place. So only the people that should see these subjective measures do. And then implement a regular monitoring process. If you don't, people will be looking at old data. About the first or second time that they pull somebody up that it says that they don't have such and such skill, but they really do, they're going to lose confidence in the system and give it up.